Alright, what's up, everybody? I know I never upload on YouTube, but I'm kind of bored, and I made this tweet yesterday that got a decent amount of traction, and I feel like talking about something. So here we go. This is my platform fighter tier list, and we've got it in pretty image format here as well. But just to introduce myself, for those of you guys who are unfamiliar with me and possibly looking to crucify me over my opinions, I am a longtime competitor, commentator, TO in the platform fighter space, and also loosely in the FGC as well. I've been putting my life into these games for pretty much as long as I can remember. I'm a big time sweat first, like all the commentary and organization stuff aside. I try to get really good at every game that I play just because I want to be good. I want to show some kid that I could destroy him or something. You know what I'm saying? And that's what keeps me going. So I've put a lot of time into every single one of these games. 100 hours on the low end for games like Multiversus in the beta, but tens of thousands of hours into all the Smash games, for example, and a couple of these others. So, yeah, I just was thinking about how much I like each of these platform fighters, especially now that we're kind of in this renaissance period for these games where a whole bunch of new ones have been coming out over the past couple of years, especially. And Multiversus fully releasing their game and honestly it not really hitting at all for me is kind of what generated this train of thought. I was like, you know what? How much have I enjoyed all of these games? Right. So I just wanted to put it into a video to kind of defend my thesis, so to speak. Again, I will reiterate, this is all my opinion. I'm not out here trying to say like you're stupid if you play one of the games that I put in low tier. Basically, it's just a list of how strongly I would recommend each of these to anybody. But at the end of the day, I would recommend that everyone play all of these games, just because, what harm could come of it, right? It'll expand your fighting game IQ to start thinking differently and playing some of these other titles. So I guess let's get into it. And again, this is from the perspective of someone who has played a ton of all of these games, but also I have never been one of the best players in the world at almost any of them. So, that said, definitely a high level player. I can hang with the big boys in almost all of these, but yeah, I would never sit here and tell you I'm like the second coming of Zayn or MKLeo or something, right? I'm qualified, but not the peak of this game, or these games rather. All right, and by the way, there's no editing whatsoever in this, so you might want to just listen to this in the car or while you're doing something else, kind of podcast style. I'm way too lazy to add video examples of any of this shit, so strap in. All right, let's start with the top. Number one on the list, Super Smash Bros. Melee. I don't think it's really any surprise to anybody to see this at the top of the list. I think it really is the most iconic of all platform fighters. It's kind of the blueprint that set a lot of these into motion, whether directly or indirectly. But there's a reason that all the games that come out, even to this day, 23 years after Melee it has been out, there's a reason that they try to emulate this or recreate a lot of the mechanics in it. So, what makes Melee so great? Well, for one, I'll say it, nostalgia, right? I'm 31 years old. This game's been out for 23 years. I've played Melee in every single one of those 23 years in some capacity. And yeah, I mean, it reminds me of childhood. It's what I grew up on, right? But obviously, there's so much more to what makes this game great. It's literally timeless. I mean, especially if you play scaled up on an emulator, it looks beautiful to this day. The art direction is amazing. Graphically, it still holds up. And yeah, it's got buttery smooth movement once you get good at it. It is unlike any other game other than the ones that try to emulate it. In terms of how you can move your character, how you can slip and slide and fall off ledges and move super fast and combo your opponents and stuff. The character designs are fun, like the top tier characters, Fox, Falco, Sheik, Marth, Falcon, Peach. Like they all have some really fun attribute about them, whether it's shining people across the stage into an up smash with Fox, or, pillaring up and down with Falco, or landing throws into knee with Falcon. Like, the game has so many fun characters that you can just explode on people with. Or if you want to play a more defensive style, there's characters like Peach Sheik to some degree, Samus, you know. You got something for everybody, even if it doesn't have that many viable characters. Uh, Again, I think the fact that it's still played 23 years later with no updates, by the way, like very, very minor stuff in like the 1.0.1 or 1.0.2 releases and stuff, like, you know, Samus's up B SDI or whatever, like, sure, but no patches, no balance patches. I guess the PAL version kind of counts for that, but even still, those changes are pretty minuscule, and even in Europe, they don't play the PAL version anymore. And the meta is still developing. We're seeing characters like Donkey Kong get great results out of nowhere in the year 2024. Like Cody Schwab, the current #1 ranked player, just lost to a DK at Gommel. So, yeah, we're seeing stuff change without the code of the game changing, and that's so amazing. And also, outside of gameplay, there are constant developments in this game, like the advent of Slippy, for example, allowing people to play amazing rollback netcode from the comfort of their own home in like a couple clicks, right? That kind of accessibility is amazing. The technical advancements that this community has made, stuff like UCF, I mean, it really just shows their passion for this, and they wouldn't love this game so much if it wasn't an absolute masterpiece. It's one of the best spectator experiences ever. The high octane gameplay, you know, people can die off one hit, or they can have super tense last hit situations, all of which are, you know, extremely gripping for their own reasons. But yeah, also, I think kind of an underrepresented great attribute of Melee is that it has such a robust single player experience. You've got all the classic adventure and all-star modes, right, which actually feel quite thoughtful, because this was back when video games really had to make an impression on people. You've got the event matches, target test, home run contest, you know, all kinds of little fun things. And even like the unlock methods for the characters, at least when you were a kid, some of those were really cool. Like you have to play a combined 20 hours of versus mode to get Mewtwo. And, you know, just cool little Easter egg stuff like that that really made it feel believable that maybe Sonic or Tails could be unlocked in the game. Again, that's kind of like nostalgia stuff, but yeah, it's really great. This game is fucking amazing, man, and there's a reason that it stood the test of time for so long. I don't think this game will go anywhere ever. The community is just so passionate, and it's easy to see why. Like, they wouldn't be passionate about the game if it didn't absolutely rock. But I will be doing pros and cons for every single one of these games. Melee is not without its flaws. I think the #1 flaw of Melee is the quality of life, or like the input system. There's no buffer in this game whatsoever. You also can't customize your controls. So on those fronts, it can be a little hard to pick up, especially if you are used to other games where you can do stuff like customizing your controls or having a buffer, not having to time everything extremely perfectly. I think there's also a hidden benefit to the lack of buffer. It's that like everything has to be very deliberate, very rehearsed and practiced, but still, I mean, even for myself who played this game as a kid and played it competitively, like going back to it after playing these newer games, it can be a bit of a pain in the ass. It's like, man, I really just have to be perfect or else I don't get what I want. And then, you know, almost nothing feels that bad in a platform fighter. Like putting in a series of inputs and you not getting the desired outcome. So that does happen in Melee, but only as a result of skill, right? Like if I were better at the game, it wouldn't be happening. And when I'm in practice in Melee, it doesn't happen nearly as much. But it is still quite a hard game. Some of the mechanics in the game are also a little bit annoying and outdated. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of crouch cancel. I know there's a lot of Melee players who love it. I personally do not, mostly because I don't play Peach or Falcon or Samus. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little corny to be unsafe on hit, but obviously there's some huge benefits to crouch canceling. It makes the neutral a lot more dynamic. You know, you have to use different options based on what's going on the screen, aka your opponent's percent or relative position. But yeah, also stuff like dying to Fox's Shine at 0%. It's a little bullshit, but at the end of the day, this game is still absolutely fucking amazing. And the last con I'll mention for Melee is the lack of viable characters, but there's a huge asterisk on that because, again, we're seeing characters like DK start to rise up and get good results. The mid-tiers like Samus, Pikachu, Luigi, they can all still hang, especially against Fox and Falco, who are, you know, two of the best characters, including the #1 character. Like, they actually can lose to some random mid-tiers more than a character like Sheik or Marth would, for example. And I think we could very much see a world where another low or mid-tier character like DK starts to rise up and take some names and maybe carve out a solid place in the metagame. So I think that's enough about Melee. It's obviously the blueprint, right? It's the genesis for all of these other games, or most of these other games that we're about to look at, especially in the S and A tier categories. But let's move on now to Rivals 2. So Rivals 2 is not out yet, but it is in beta. There have been a couple beta weekends. There have been quite a few events that have been allowed to play the game. And I've played a lot of this game. A great deal of Rivals 2. And as someone who loves the core engine of Melee, but isn't dedicated enough to Melee to, make it my main game, this game is perfect. It has a bunch of these quality of life changes that Melee lacks, like a input buffer and custom controls, while also retaining all the fun stuff, like wave dashing, wave landing, the ledge mechanics, the aggressive gameplay, right? Rivals 2, I think, does all of the things that Melee does well, and then does a couple of its own things well, and removes some of the negatives of Melee. I think, if not for Melee's iconic status as the originator of all of this, I would feel pretty comfortable putting Rivals 2 in the number one spot. It just feels like the perfect synthesis of this type of engine. And again, the quality of life changes really hit. It has some of its own cool, unique attributes, like the special get-up attack and special pummel stuff, I guess, is kind of cool. But mostly what I want to shout out for this game is the thorough character design. Every character really does feel like they fit a theme. They all have their little elements and some kind of gimmick centered around it. For example, Rano stacks his poison on you when he hits you with needles, or certain moves, like puts you in the bubble. And then, you stay in the bubble for longer if you have more poison stacks, or you take more knockback when Zetterburn lights you on fire, or Clarence Tipper stun you in place. All of those things are pretty cool. They're pretty well thought out, I think, for the most part. And yeah, each character really has an identity. Like, they've got some familiar feeling moves and character ideas, of course. Like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that Clarence is kind of like a new twist on Marth, and that Zetterburn is a new twist on Fox or Wolf. But still, they managed to carve out their own identity and feel unique and special. I also really like the characters themselves. Obviously, they're not from any other game or form of media, but they have personality. They have distinguishing traits that make them cool. And yeah, I think, for a small cast, they kind of really hit a lot of different niches with the characters in this game. Obviously, they're from Rivals 1 as well, so a lot of the credit for that should go to Rivals 1. But as you'll see, I have not really played that game very much. We'll talk about Rivals 1 a little bit later. I also think the art style is beautiful in this game. It reminds me a lot of like Marvel 3, where it's kind of like a living comic book or living anime. It's an art style that absolutely cannot age. I don't care like what kind of high fidelity shit they come out with in the future. This game will always look beautiful, and it's because it isn't trying to emulate real life. It's trying to have its own distinct animation style, and I really prefer the Rivals 2 art style to the pixel art of Rivals 1. Just, I like pixel art, but overall it's not really for me, at least the way that it's done in Rivals 1. This game is fucking beautiful. Very, very nice to look at. And yeah, I guess that's it for the positives. It really just feels like kind of the perfect synthesis of all these Melee-esque mechanics with a couple new things on their own. But I will say, for the cons, first of all, is the character Crag. He is the big Hercules beetle looking guy. Dude, that character is fucking bullshit, man. I don't know who made that, but that guy needs to be seriously looked at. I have a feeling that he'll just ruin so many people's bracket runs, but obviously that's a small gripe. But yeah, Dan Fornace, if you're fucking watching this, man, please get rid of Crag. Actually, just take him out of the game. Or, I don't know. I've got a little list. I'll send it to you, man. Anyway, the cast is small, which I think most people would see as a negative. It's only 8 characters right now. I think it'll be 9 at release. That doesn't bother me, because learning all these matchups with silly little nuances can be quite annoying. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it is still a lack of character diversity. There might not be a character that fits every single player. Although I think if you play the game and give everyone a good shot, there probably will be something for you in it. And then also, in terms of like its own unique identity, I think the special get-up attacks and pummels, I did mention that in the pros section, but ultimately I would say it's a kind of boring gimmick, kind of a boring, unique twist to put on the game, because otherwise it really is just very, very Smash-like, which you'll never hear a complaint about that from me. I prefer fewer gimmicks in these games, just want the core gameplay to be really fun. But yeah, I think they could have aimed a little bit higher with something like that. It just doesn't really hit that hard for me. I think it's kind of lame. But ultimately, a very small gripe. Again, I would very comfortably put this as my favorite to play. Although, I have to give it up to Melee. Like, the game is definitely the most influential and definitive of the genre. So that's the only reason it's really not in number one. Again, this is a personal preference tier list here, right? But I think even in my own memory and experience, Melee still takes the cake as being the most, again, definitive. Okay, on to Slap City. I think Slap City has a lot of the same positives as Rivals. It's just easy Melee with quality of life changes, a couple unique mechanics. The big one in this game is Clutch, which allows you to reverse your aerial momentum on certain moves, namely specials. And Air Strongs, that's another thing that this game has that not a lot of other games have. You can do a sixth aerial, your Air Strong. I quite like this game a lot. It was the first indie Melee clone that I really put a lot of time into. Again, I didn't play Rivals 1 much. But yeah, this game has its own charm. It looks like a PS1 game. I think that's really the biggest flaw with it, is that it's kind of fucking ugly. But it doesn't matter, man. It has its own weird charm, kind of like a show like Invader Zim, where it's like a little grotesque, but you fucking love it anyway, if not because of that. And yeah, Slap just feels like the perfect easy Melee. You know, you can do all the stuff that you can do in Melee, and then some more stuff. All the characters are quite unique. And yeah, this game is great. It's also definitely the smallest one on this tier list in terms of player base. It's quite old now as well, 6 or 7 years old, so if you find Slap City by way of this tier list video, please go ahead and check it out. I think it's only like $6 on Steam. You won't regret it. It's really fun. If you like Melee and you like Melee-esque games, hell, if you even just like Smash and you're looking to try kind of an easy Melee clone, go ahead and cop Slap City. I think you'll find yourself pleasantly surprised with how fun it is. And yeah, the biggest knock on this game, other than the graphics, is same as Rivals, small cast. There might not be a character that suits everybody, but I don't know. I think you'd be surprised. You know, just give everyone an honest shot. Eventually something will click for you. So that's it for the S tier. These games, you know, obviously they're so much smaller than the Smash Brothers franchise, but I would really hope that, especially in the case of Rivals 2, because it's a new release and they're really trying to put their weight behind making this game big, I would love to see this game succeed. I would love to see Slap City make a resurgence, or maybe even have a second iteration come out that has some kind of competitive backing. That's a huge flaw in the Smash Brothers series, is that Nintendo doesn't really provide any backing to the competitive scene. So maybe these indie games could be our shot, but obviously they're not owned by a multi-billion-dollar corporation like Nintendo. So it's pretty unlikely. That said, let's move on to the A tier. We got HDR. So if you don't know what HDR is, it's kind of like the Project M of Smash Ultimate, aka a mod of the game to make it have Melee-esque movement and physics. So more hits done equals more combos, more movement, wave dashing, wave landing, moonwalking, ground to air movement conservation. So like if you dash and then jump, you'll go flying, stuff like that. And yeah, this game's really fucking fun. I would say that in my own personal experience, either this game or NASB 1, which we'll get to in the B tier, these are the two that I've reached my like competitive height in. I'm currently ranked 26th in the world in HDR, but I've been very, very inactive. I think I could have got a little higher, not to talk about myself too much here or anything, but yeah, if I attended a little more, I probably could have cracked that top 20 territory. I've played several of the best players in this game and been able to hang with them, or at least give them a challenge. But yeah, it's really fucking fun, man. It has all these quality of life things that have pretty much become standard in the Melee clones, right? Small input buffer. You can wave dash horizontally instead of having to go down diagonal. What else? You can change your controls. That's a huge one. And it has the massive cast of Ultimate in it, which really I think sets it apart from Melee, which has 26 characters, but more like 12 or 10 or even 8 or 6 if you really want to draw the line of who's competitively viable or who you'll actually be able to find success with. So yeah, HDR wins in terms of the roster, in terms of the accessibility, and it has a couple new movement techs. It has something called wave dropping, which I think is originally in Rivals 1, where if you like drop through a platform while wave dashing or wave landing on it, you'll get a big burst forward in the air. I think that's really cool. Has all the stuff from Ultimate, like B reversing and wave bouncing, that aren't present in Melee, so it kind of fuses all these new concepts with the core of the Melee engine. But I will say it's not without its cons, and the number one con of this game, because it's a fan-made game, the balancing and character designs are really not great, in my opinion. It's had several broken characters over the about year and a half that I've played it. The first one was Duck Hunt, who is an absolute nightmare to fight. I don't even know who's broken in this right now, because I haven't played it, but there's certain characters like Lucario, for example, that you don't actually have to be good at this game. You don't have to learn any of these melee mechanics, because he's got his own stupid gimmick thing going on where you can cancel his moves into a command grab on your shield and just like spam moves all over the place. I really don't like that character. Really don't like Duck Hunt when he was broken. And I don't even know if these characters are the same way that they were before, because they changed this game so damn much, and it's not really being overseen by any official entity. It's just like, well, this guy with enough free time and enough coding knowledge and enough character knowledge or passion for the character is kind of just appointed to be in charge of their own character. And the same kind of goes for the engine and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest flaw with HDR, is that because it's a fan game, it's kind of the wild fucking west in terms of what they put in or take out or how they change characters. And I don't really like the vision they've gone for with a lot of them. But that said, the core of the game, the engine of the game, is amazing. And just being able to play effectively Melee with 90 characters is fucking sick. So, yeah, big ups to HDR. I'll give it the nod in a big way at the top of the A tier. And then we have NASB 2. This game, I think, had so much potential. It is one of the best games I've ever played, no question about it. But it was severely let down by a small dev team, small resource pool, limited budget. Yeah, but I will say the positives about this game are huge. So I think this is the most creative of kind of the Melee-esque games. Rivals and Slap City, they don't really break the mold as much as this game did. Like, this game really tried to do something new with slime canceling, which functions like a Roman cancel in Guilty Gear. What that means is basically you can reset your character to an empty neutral state out of any animation. So if you're doing an attack, whether you're hitting them or not, you can spend one of your 3 meters to just return to standing, or like, you know, neutral state in the air, wherever you are, air versus ground. And that opens the door to really cool pressure combos, setups. You know, you can do all kinds of different stuff just by ending the animation you're in immediately. You get 3 chances to do it at a time if you have full meter, but you can also use your meter for other things, to do EX specials, which are just, you know, super powered versions of your special moves, whether that's adding some kind of attribute to it or just making it stronger or less lag or something like that, making your recovery travel further. You can exit free fall after you're up B to then air dodge or attack and keep yourself safe on the way down, or get a little extra distance, or just change your path. You can spend 2 bars to burst out of any combo or out of any situation that would kill you. I kind of hate burst, I'm not going to lie, because you can survive at ridiculous percents with it. But even still, just having meter management in a platform fighter is really fucking cool. And yeah, I really like this game. I mean, again, just like Rivals, HDR, Slap City, it has all those core Melee-esque mechanics that make it fun as fuck. And this one actually has a unique twist on it. I have to dock points for it, though, because it is buggy as fuck. It's a logistical nightmare to play offline. Controller issues have impacted several tournaments, including ones that I've run myself in Let's Make Big Moves and get on my level. Yeah, just having to deal with that is extremely unpleasant. Like, I don't want these games to be Discord fighters, right? Where the offline scene is dead and, you know, you just hop on with your boys in a small server or even a big server and have to find matches that way. Like, I want to see these games flourish, and I think having good, accessible offline play is the #1 thing. Like, these games the older games like Melee all became what they are because people had to meet face to face at live tournaments or live sessions and play offline. And maybe I'm a boomer for saying that, but I think it's just kind of whack when games devolve into like ranked or unranked matchmaking, and it's hard to actually find a community for it in real life. Like the beauty of fighting games that it brings people together through competition, through pride, and pushing yourself to be the best. So I will dock serious points off NASB 2 for that. I would have probably put it in the S tier if not for these things. And yeah, a lot of this is just kind of the function of a small budget and a small team for the game. It's really unfortunate that Nickelodeon themselves didn't throw more weight behind this. They could have supported an esports infrastructure and been that quote-unquote smash killer that people are hyping the first game up to be. This game was just such a missed opportunity, but it is really, really, really fun at its core, and I'd strongly recommend it to anybody. I would love to see, again, all of these games flourish, but especially this one. It kind of deserves that renaissance. All right, now let's talk about Project M to round out the A tier. This was the first quote-unquote new Melee. I don't even really want to call this one easy Melee because they don't have like input buffering legal in tournaments as far as I understand. I think they do have automatic L canceling enabled in tournaments though, or really at the discretion of the TOs. So I guess that kind of makes it a little bit of an easy Melee. It's got a bigger cast in Melee by 12 characters or 11 characters. I think it has 36. Well, 37 if you count Knuckles. They added Knuckles as a custom character in recent years. Another good thing about this, like in contrast to HDR, is that the character designs have been refined over several years. Like the PM development team is a lot more of an organized unit, or was at least, than the HDR dev teams, which are kind of, again, the Wild West. There's so many more characters to manage in HDR, so I understand why. And there was a much more concerted effort around getting PM off the ground and putting good dev teams in place. So I think that's why it's felt a lot more organized and a lot more stable in terms of the character balance. It's got stuff like custom controls, that also set it apart from Melee in terms of accessibility. But where I will dock a few points from PM is that I don't think they really broke the mold too much in terms of Melee engine-wise, even down to stuff like horizontal wave dashes and wavelands, which is mostly quality of life, but still, like, there weren't really new things added to PM, and that's fine. I guess what you do have is wave bouncing and B reversing, which is a holdover from Brawl. That's awesome, but I think it's a little silly to dock points for this stuff just because the game really was trying to recreate Melee more so than be its own thing. And it's developed its own identity as well, but mostly through the characters and less through the engine. Not really a knock on the game at all. Personally, I just have more fun with HDR. I like the characters more. Like a Cloud, for example, is a character I've always loved in Smash, and I can play Cloud in HDR. I can't play him in PM, so we're kind of splitting hairs here, and I just have to reiterate for like the 75th fucking time that this is a personal tier list. Personal opinion. So, I don't like P+ as much. Although I will say, I've played PMEX, which is like another even more obscure offshoot of this game. And Lynn in that is perhaps the most fun character I've ever played. She's fucking awesome. Alright, let's move on to the B tier. We got NASB 1. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1. I just realized I never explained what that acronym meant when we went over NASB 2. But either way, Nick 1. This game was so controversial when it came out, man. And I think it did not get a fair shake because of one silly Hungrybox YouTube thumbnail or YouTube title that Hungrybox himself didn't even write. It was like, oh, is this game the Smash killer? And then when the game came out, it was kind of a disaster. And as a result of that, those two things together, a lot of people just started hating on this. And one thing I really have to say about the Smash community, kind of just as an offshoot, particularly the Smash Ultimate community or like the new Smash game community, is that they're very territorial. Like, anything that threatens their little bubble of like being good at this one game or like loving this one game in the series, it just really like upsets them and they get super defensive and territorial about it. So yeah, a whole bunch of hate was directed at this game. And let's go over the negatives first with this game because that's how we're starting. So yeah, it was a shit show at launch. There were infinites, there were balancing issues, no voice acting, pretty bad online. It was ugly. Like the graphics are not good. Yeah, so all these things were what people saw, right? And it's like, oh wow, I don't want to play some fast janky game where you like double spike everybody all the time and like it just doesn't feel anything like Ultimate, which is a lot more tame. But yeah, NASB 1 got off on the wrong foot for sure. Later balance patches definitely fixed a lot of the issues with the game. Like, it wasn't just a double spike fiesta anymore. They added voice acting. I don't know if the online ever improved. Actually, I do know it did because of a community member named Sanji. So shout outs to him. He's literally like the fucking goat. Dude has done more work for coding the NASB games than the actual teams themselves, it seems like. But yeah, let's talk about the positives because this game fucking rules. And especially when NASB 2 wasn't there to kind of overshadow it, I truly loved this game so much. It had an air dash instead of an air dodge, which is just great, honestly. Like, I think air dodging is a boring mechanic. I want to just beat the shit out of people. Air dashing lets you chase them, lets you fucking move around in super sick ways. It's very fast, which I think is really fun. It's got some good tech in it. Like, being a technical player in this game can go a long way. The character designs are quite fun and creative. And it's also got iconic IP, right? Same thing as Nick 2. And that's something that sets this apart from Rivals 2 and Slap City and you know, Flash Party, for example, right? It's like, you know SpongeBob, you know, I don't know, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Jenny Wakeman or Zim. Like, you know all these characters from either your childhood or like your older siblings' childhood if you're a Zoomer. Or Gen Alpha, I guess. Maybe you like the Loud House. I don't know. But, yeah, obviously, like, you've seen these characters on TV for years and years and years. And it's not like just some random designs that are kind of hard to get invested in. And I think having that initial hook is very useful for games like this to get off the ground. But, yeah, NASB 1 obviously has had a pretty rough history. I think at the end, it was quite a fun game. Definitely a bullshitty game, but a very fun one. And I had a lot of fun with it. Flash Party is next. This game is, I think, the first and only one that emulates the new Smash game style, rather than being a Melee-esque game. So, what I mean by that is in the transition from Melee to Brawl, they took out a lot of tech, wave dashing, L canceling, stuff like that. Gravity was significantly reduced. It's a floatier Brawl is much floatier, as are all the other Smash games after Melee. Less hit stun, and yeah, just less aggressively focused overall. Kind of more of a focus on these little ticky-tack 2-piece, maybe 3-piece combos, and then reading your opponent afterward, resetting to neutral, etc. Flash Party is kind of cut from that same cloth, and it's somehow more fun than all of the new Smash games. Like, I really don't like that style of game, even though probably most people watching this, if you know me from the Smash community, you know me from Brawl or Smash 4 or Ultimate. Those games aren't really my jam, man. I feel like once you get to a certain level of gameplay in Smash, it leaves you wanting more, right? More of a ceiling to push, more of an incentive to practice. And that's why I typically like the higher speed, higher hit stun, higher tech skill games, because it just feels like there's something more tangible to work toward. And once you have control over those games, once you can move in those engines, they are so much more fun than the basic walk, run, jump of the newer ones, right? Flash Party is kind of cut from that cloth, right? However, it does have more hit stun than Ultimate. It does have wave dashing. Yeah, I mean, like, it kind of blends the great parts of both games together. And this game, it has that slower pace, kind of similar to Ultimate, but you can still fuck somebody up, and you can still kind of move around a little bit. Really fun game, really creative, I think, as well. Like, it's hard to say exactly why it's creative. I guess mostly because it's not really directly emulating either of the two main core Smash archetypes, right? It's kind of fusing a Melee-esque and an Ultimate-esque together. And I think the end product is really quite good. The characters are creative but also familiar. You know, you have Sophia, who's, again, basically Marth, but she's got some of her own unique moves and functions as well. And then the cast size is pretty good. I think there's something like 20-something characters in the game. And truly the most unique thing about this game is that it is also a mobile game. And it plays amazingly on mobile. I'm very particular about controllers and control schemes and all that stuff, but goddamn does this game feel good on your fucking iPhone. Never thought I would ever say that about a platform fighter or a fighting game in general, but give it a shot. I mean, I got into this game because I was at a tournament like a year and a half ago, and I was just bored and I wanted to play some games. We didn't have a setup in the room. So I downloaded Flash Party and I was fucking gaming on that shit the whole weekend. It was actually amazing. Then I went home and got it on Steam and, really started to sweat. I also got to top 10 in North America in this game. It was pretty fun and rewarding to climb the ladder. Yeah, I'll get to this in a second. I didn't do any of the pay to win shit, and I was still beating people who did, so that was nice. Um, but yeah, I guess let's talk about the cons of this game because and also by the way, the netcode is great. So this game has some pay to win garbage in it. As far as I know, I think it's been mostly removed. You could buy like stickers that would buff your characters, and if you really were a filthy pay pig, you could be much stronger than the average player. So I'm pretty sure I haven't played in a long time, but I'm pretty sure that they have removed that or toned it down. Scrubby gameplay can work in this game, especially when you have stickers. Like some of the big heavy characters, they just do a dumbass move or they come crashing down on you, but it kills you at 40% because they jacked up their offense or their attacking stats so hard, and it's like, dude, are you fucking serious? And then also, of course, the IP is not anything you know or recognize. I think the characters are a little bit fucking goofy and lame in this game too. I'll be real, but their designs, their movesets are really good. So I quite like Flash Party. I had a lot more fun with it than I ever had with Ultimate. So let's talk about Ultimate next. So obviously there's a lot of good stuff about Ultimate, right? It has great visual polish, the cast, the IP. I mean, that's the same shit, I guess. It's faster and more aggressive than the other new Smash games, like Smash 4 and Brawl. There's more combos, more offensive options, more movement, kind of. I think it's great to watch. It's one of the most fun games to watch for me, just because I know a lot of the players, I guess. Maybe that's a little personal bias. It's like I've been playing or watching or playing with these guys for years, for like 16 years now since I started showing up to tournaments. And yeah, it's been fun to watch them grow in their own personal stories and the new guys coming up and making a name for themselves. But also the gameplay is, it's pretty good to watch. There's a lot less combos than a game like Melee, but there's a lot more combos than a game like Brawl. It's definitely faster than Brawl and Smash 4 in terms of gravity and movement speed. Excuse me. And the player base is huge, which makes the storylines interesting. But why do I not like Ultimate? Why is it sitting pretty much dead in the middle of this tier list? Well, it stripped bare a lot of the tech that was in Melee. I mean, this is really Brawl's fault, but the symptoms are still felt in Ultimate. And in this game, it kind of felt like they almost wanted to add some stuff back. Like, you can wave dash and wave land in this game, but it's just kind of slow and shitty and doesn't feel good. They took shield dropping out after the E3 demo. Thanks, guys. Me and Void, I know, had remarked on the fact that it was still in the game. And we're like, yeah, maybe make it a little easier. And they just took it out instead, which was fucked. And yeah, I mean, there are combos in this game, but it usually feels like they're either like long and degenerate, like Steve up tilt chains into death, or Steve jab chains into death, or Kazuya electric chains into death, rather than like fun, like, hey, I popped you up and then I followed your DI and then I hit you with whatever I want and then I extended in a creative way. Like, that's why the high hit stun games are more fun. You can get so much more creative with your combos. DI matters so much more, and even if they DI right, like, you can still do something cool, like, you can still figure out how your opponent's going to try to escape your combo or your setup, and it's just more intuitive. Like, I think the goal was to make, casual bad players feel like they don't just die if they get hit. But what about when they hit you? Like, Brawl, Smash 4, and Ultimate, because they have low hit stun, if they don't know the exact next move that they're supposed to do and exactly when to do it, because the timing is very strict in these lower hit stun games to get follow-ups, how are they ever going to hit you more than once? And I think that's when games get more fun. It's like, I get to do cool, creative follow-ups when I hit my opponent. Like, that is the essence of fighting games. And I know I'm choosing the Ultimate section to bitch about this, but again, this is a symptom shared by Brawl, Smash 4, and Ultimate all together. So, yeah, like, that's kind of the root of why I don't like the new Smash games. There's not any of this fun movement tech that honestly is not even that hard to learn. There's very low hit stun. The floatiness is kind of jacked up, but Ultimate is definitely the least floaty of these. And, I don't know. It's just not as fun, man. There's just not as much shit going on, not as much shit to master, not as much incentive to keep playing and grinding. It kind of just feels like, you can beat anybody if you can slightly outthink them, or if you're just playing more rock solid in the moment, right? And that's cool in its own right. It's kind of more like the Street Fighter to Melee's Marvel, right? But I don't know, man. The new Smash games just don't hit for me. I'm kind of bored of them. Ultimate is definitely the best of them on paper, but it still doesn't feel all that great. I would love to see this game just have a little more hits done, a little bit more movement. Like, just make real wave dashing and wave landing in this game, and we're cooking. Like, we've got a great base to work with. So the other things about Ultimate that really lose points for it are the top tier characters, namely Steve, but Sonic is pretty fucking annoying to deal with. Rob and Game & Watch are pretty fucking annoying to deal with. Kazuya, even though most people don't have him like in their top 5 or top 10, that character is an absolute plague. Dealing with him is not fun. You make one mistake and you die. And yeah, I don't know, man. I've got a roommate, shout out to Dre, who plays Kazuya. He, I think, did the most work to ruin this game for me just because it didn't even feel worth playing anymore at a certain point. And then fortunately, close to the release of Kazuya is when a bunch of these new games started to come out, starting with NASB 1. So I'm glad I moved away from this game. I never truly loved it like I loved Smash 4 and Brawl even, which I think are worse games objectively. But yeah, I don't know, man. Ultimate's just not it for me. Again, though, it is great to watch. I love casting this game. I love running tournaments for this game. I love watching it. I love keeping up with the affairs of it. But playing it is absolutely not for me. It just doesn't have enough to offer, I don't think. And then also the input system in this game is the worst it's ever been, man. I'm not going to lie. The buffer in this game at the start of learning it was so horrible. The hold buffering, the rolls and spot dodges and air dodges that you would get. The way that the control stick can override the C stick for the direction of your attacks. So many flaws in this input system. Like Smash 4 and Brawl both felt way better in that regard. I'm not sure what happened to cause that, but there's also input delay because of the Switch. And because you have to use an adapter, like an additional peripheral for it to play with the GameCube controller. I don't know. Ultimate is not a bad game by any means, but it is not a great game for me. And thus I cannot rate it any higher than middle of the pack here. And Smash 4, I think all the good things about Ultimate apply to this. You know, it's a little more aggressive than Brawl, a little faster, a little more combos. Low-key, it kind of feels like it had some more combos than Ultimate at a lot of times, but some of them were some degenerate shit, like Zero Suit, down throw, up air, up B. Yeah, it's very smooth and fluid. Ultimate feels a little choppier, like higher traction and stuff. Smash 4 feels like you can slide more. There's also some movement tech, perfect pivoting that was not in Ultimate, that was in Smash 4 and all the Smash games before it. But I think it suffers from all the same flaws as Ultimate, which are the lack of hit stun and gravity and tech compared to a game like Melee and all its, you know, all the games that came after it that were directly inspired by it. And also there was rage, a really strong rage in Smash 4. It's still in Ultimate, but significantly toned down, so you could like just kill people at 20% off the top of the screen sometimes, which was kind of bullshit. The top tiers were also bullshit in that game. It's Bayonetta more so than Steve and Sonic, but yeah, Bayonetta is definitely like the core problem in that game. Cloud and Sonic are also pretty degenerate. Diddy, when he was the best character, was absolutely degenerate, but really the one I'd point to is Bayonetta, and in Ultimate's case it's really Steve, to a lesser degree Sonic and Kazuya. But yeah, I see them as almost the same game, honestly. Smash 4 is just like a slower, floatier version of Ultimate. I will say that I had a lot more fun with Smash 4 when it was the current game than I did with Ultimate, because coming out of Brawl, Smash 4 felt like it made some improvements, like it was on the right track in terms of maybe going toward a more aggressive and technical game like Melee. But then when Ultimate came out, it was just like, really? Like Brawl 3, you know? Like Smash 4 felt like Brawl 2, Ultimate felt like Brawl 3. It just feels like the same game, cut from the same cloth. And it was a little easier to stomach that when it was just one game after Brawl that kind of followed in the same footsteps. So I also had the time of my life competing in this game. Got some amazing wins on amazing players. Really like felt like I achieved a lot in this game. Also where I kind of rose to prominence as a commentator. So I have a lot of fond memories associated with Smash 4. If I didn't have to, you know, look past several flaws in the gameplay or several improvements that Ultimate made, I would rank it higher than Ultimate. But again, I think like a little bit of objectivity has to be part of this list, even if it's opinion. And Smash 4 is absolutely not a better game than Ultimate, even if I had a much more fun time with it. All right, and then we got Brawl. This game was like my young adulthood. You know, Melee was my childhood, but by the time I was old enough that I could actually start going to tournaments, Brawl was the current game. So I have some very fond memories associated with this as well. However, I have some not so fond memories of this game. I think the best thing you can say about Brawl is that it shifted things away from like a hyper technical and fast environment like Melee and toward a more thoughtful read and footsies based game style, which, because a lot of the top Melee players gave Brawl a shot at the beginning, I think them learning how to fight like this also pushed the Melee meta forward. But it also marked a different style of being good at Smash, right? Instead of overwhelming people with aggression and technical stuff that they couldn't respond to, you had to make more reads and learn like how to actually fight people and outread them and stuff like that. So yeah, credit to Brawl for that. It was something different, something new, but at the end of the day, it was way less fun. There were no combos in this game. You can air dodge out of every single move on frame 13 if hit's done, so good luck getting more than a 2-hit combo. The top tiers were absolute cancer in this game. I think much more so than Bayonetta and Steve. Meta Knight and Ice Climbers were just absolutely horrible to deal with. Particularly Ice Climbers. I think Meta Knight gets a lot of undeserved hate from people that didn't play Brawl, but keep it a stack, man. You fight against a Meta Knight, you're at least playing the game. He just has way better tools than you do. Ice Climbers, it's like fighting Kazuya in Ultimate, except magnified 100-fold because there's no counterplay once you get grabbed. You are just dead. That character was a crime against humanity. There's some tech in Brawl, but it's not like cool or fun for the most part, other than maybe platform canceling, where you could cancel your ascent through a moving platform. Well, that's kind of cool, but ultimately kind of whatever. And yeah, I have to dock points from this game for ushering in that new era of more casualized Smash with less tech and less combos and just less fun shit and less of a ceiling to push. Less expression. Alright, next up is the Multiversus beta. So I actually, you know, despite these games being in C tier, I've had great times with all of them, right? I had a lot of fun with the Multiversus beta. It was infuriating on so many levels, but I also sank like 130-something hours into it because, like, I don't know, it was fun. There's nothing else to do, I guess. But let's talk about the positives of Multiversus first. So, the roster is fucking awesome. Like, Bugs Bunny, I love that guy. LeBron James, are you fucking serious? Batman, huh? Like, where are you gonna get all these characters? Arya Stark, etc., etc. The list goes on, right? It's just like such a shocking, jaw-dropping roster, and it seems like the sky's the limit. Like, what doesn't Warner Brothers have their hand in, right? They can get the rights to so many different things, and make a really cool and creative roster. I will dock points from the roster for adding fucking Gizmo and Stripe, though. Are you fucking kidding? Especially Gizmo. Like, at least Stripe is cool, but what are we adding these gremlins for, man? I don't know, whatever. And I will credit this game for trying something new. It's definitely not a Melee-esque, and it's definitely not an Ultimate-esque. Like, this is its own flavor of platform fighter in a lot of ways. I'd honestly compare it more to Brawlhalla than anything, but even still, it's quite distinct from that. And I also think it's cool that they made it double-centric, making the main form or main mode of the game 2v2, and that's, you know, singles is kind of an afterthought. It's cool and creative, but at the end of the day, I do think it's also kind of restrictive because, you know, it changes fighting games from being like, okay, like I can just be a rogue agent, go out there and show my stuff, but now you have to have like a set teammate, and it just adds like another layer of restriction and less accessibility when you do something like that. So yeah, I don't know, it was creative at the very least, and I gotta give it up for the innovation. But let's talk about what was wrong with this game, because it's on the tier list another time as well. So let's set the stage for that. So I think this game has some goofy ass mechanics, man. Like a lot of the stuff in doubles was just silly, like Velma's megaphone going straight through you, or Bugs being able to send a safe that you can't hit back at him through a hole and then it comes back up the other way, or like Iron Giant, his teammate can jump inside of him and do all kinds of dumb shit. All the armor, by the way, Superman as a character in general, I don't know, man. There's so much goofy shit in this game. It is very mashy and scrubby. You can't block in this game, which, like, can we just talk about that for a second? We don't need to forcefully differentiate platform fighters from Smash to the degree that we will remove blocking. Blocking is in every fighting game, with very few exceptions, okay? It's not a cop-out. It's not copying Smash. It's not a tired gimmick, not a tired mechanic, to have blocking in the game. And because you can't block, you have to time dodges through everything to avoid it. But they also made the dodging OP in this game, which made it really unfun because, you would hit somebody and then they just dodge, counter hit you. Like, that is not fun gameplay. And we'll talk about that more when we get to the new version of this game. But you could dodge and then attack right afterward on offense as well, which, it's everyone's approaching invincibly. Like, what are you supposed to do about that? I don't know. I think scrubby gameplay in this game just went way too far for you. Like, it took you way too far. Especially in doubles, just because there's no team attack. You don't really have to thoughtfully space anything. You and your opponent can kind of just create some iron wall of hitboxes, and it would work out at several levels of play. Again, when you're a master of these games, obviously you can shut the scrubby shit down. I'm not here to dispute that. Like, the best players in the world, they're not going to fall victim to that. But, for the, let's say, mid to high level of play, there's just, you could get away with murder being a shit player in this game. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you couldn't block. A lot of it has to do with the fact that there is no team attack. A lot of it has to do with the fact that dodging is extremely overpowered. Also, you can recover infinitely. As long as you can cling to the wall, you could just get back. And honestly, I don't like a lot of the character designs in this game either. Like, I love the roster, but I don't feel like they were executed particularly well. A lot of it is just like, oh yeah, this move, for some reason, just kills the shit out of you at fucking 40% if you're at the top of the screen. Or, like, this guy sets up a wall, and this guy gets armor on this. And, like, oh, dude, fuck off, man. Like, they're just so annoying to fight. Like, I can't think of a matchup I liked in this game. I don't know. It was very fun, though. It was very fun. And, again, it was unique. Just felt different. 2v2 focused. Definitely some positives here. Smash 64. Alright, look, it's awesome that this game still exists. It literally created the genre. Watching people get touched of death is awesome. But playing this game, I do not have fun with it at all. I just, I'm looking for my C-stick every time I'm playing on that shit N64 controller. I'm, like, literally trying to move my thumb down to a C-stick that's not there. And I just have not put time into this game since I was 6, 7 years old, waiting for Melee to come out. Like, obviously, it's the first one I played. It kickstarted this whole thing into motion. Much like how Melee kind of inspired the gameplay for all the other ones, this game kickstarted the idea. So, I gotta give Smash 64 credit, but in the year 2024, as someone who's not a diehard for this game, it is just quite unpleasant to play for me. But I obviously have a ton of love for it regardless. And there's not really much to say beyond that. I don't hate this game at all. It's just not for me. And last on the list, in last place, is the full release of Multiversus, which just came out a couple days ago, after the beta went down for like almost a year. I gotta say, man, not a fan of this game. It has all the same positives as the first one, as the beta. Like, the roster's great. It tried something new and ambitious, going for doubles, and also kind of just the floaty mechanics of it. But it honestly feels like this game was just watered down in every single way. It is significantly slower. There's way more hit lag on all attacks. It feels like there's less gravity and less movement speed, and just the moves come out and finish slower. It just feels very sticky. You know what I'm saying? And, like, I'm sure when you master it, it's a little more fluid. But I don't know, man. It just feels like you're trapped in every animation that you do. It just feels like you can't really slip and slide and move around. Like, what I will say about this game that was a positive is that they nerfed dodging a little bit, right? It's now like a bit more of a resource that you have to manage. But the core of the game is still like, do whatever your guaranteed thing is, which could be a loop into death, and you don't have to do anything beyond that, which is also fucking stupid. Or it's like a 2-piece, 3-piece combo where then your opponent has a chance to dodge in or out or in place afterward. And you've got to wait and track the dodge and read it. And I'll be honest, man, that feels like Brawl, that feels like Smash 4, where, like, the hit stun is low, you just get the fucking... It's just resets over and over again. Bro, like, let me fuck people up, man. Like, dodge into counter hit is not fun to deal with. It really is not. And I think the idea was that, like, less good players could not feel like they're dying every time they get hit, which I can appreciate. But, like, you can do that with stuff like DI and, like, just making kill moves not so absurd. Like, the thing is, in this game, like, everything kills you off the top at, like, 60% for some reason. But if you're not mashing on dodge, it's all going to hit you. And the only way to deal with it is mashing on dodge most of the time. And again, I'm speaking from a pretty mid-level perspective. I'm not great at this game. But I don't know. At the level that most people are playing at and below, I don't know. It's just not fun, man. It's too slow and sticky. Like aerials, okay, this is a problem in the beta as well. Aerials are forced to complete before you can land on the ground, which I think makes the game feel really awkward. Like it's again just something that like forcefully differentiates it from Smash, but like no other platform fighters are trying this and there's a good reason for it. It just feels sloppy. Like what is this anti-gravity shit where I'm floating an inch above the ground completing my aerial? Like that's not really fun. What is like the ridiculous amount of hit lag and long animations on every single move? And I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Just hitting someone and then having to read their dodge or else you get counter hit. Like, I don't know. That's not fun to me. I don't feel like a super genius for taking a 30 frame break, a half-second break in the middle of my combo and then hitting you right after that. Like, I would feel much better just hitting the moves that feel natural and kind of flowing naturally from there. You also, again, still have infinite recoveries. If you touch the wall, you're making it back. Like, I don't know. That doesn't feel good. Like, now characters can't be balanced around how good or bad their recovery is, really. And also, you can't tech, like, stage spikes or ceiling and wall spikes. And that just makes you feel like you're getting ping-ponged over and over and over again. You don't get to play the game. And it's even worse in doubles. Like, for this game, the full release, I feel like doubles is even less fun than singles. Just because it takes so long for shit to complete. Like, there are just moves that are lingering forever and then ping-ponging you off walls and floors and all this shit. And it's like, bro, when I'm not playing this game, I'm really not playing this game. Like, I'm just bouncing around and it's so fucking weird and goofy. I don't know, man. I don't know. I would love to see the mechanics get a full reversion to the beta for this game. The one real plus that it has is that the online is significantly better than it used to, but it still goes down. Like, it disconnects like 1 in 5 games, 1 in 10 games maybe. I don't know. And yeah, the combos are either just loops into death or something that you can dodge out of. They also toned down like the effectiveness of perks. I think perks were a really cool way to kind of customize your character in the first one, but I'm also totally fine with that on the other hand because like it's less dumb shit I have to deal with. So, I don't know, man. Multiversus, I want this game to be good. Like, I want all these games to be good. I've said it before in this video, but I'll say it again. I want this game to go the distance, and this is the one that I think has the highest promise of getting some real developer support, right? It seems like the team behind it and the company backing the team behind it all have good intentions for it, so this is the one that I think, you know, there's the most to lose by this game being bad. So please, guys, just make it a little speedier, make it a little more fluid, make it a little more balanced as well. Like, some of these characters are just fucking cheese balls. Please fix that. I'm looking at you, Banana Guard. I'm looking at you, Gizmo. Like, dude, can we just fucking block? Can we add blocking to the game? Because projectiles, you can't clank them out, and you can't shield in this game. So the only way to deal with them is to dodge through it. But if the projectile ends fast enough, then your opponent just punishes the dodge. So, I don't know, man. Not a really fun or intuitive game, honestly, but it has potential. It definitely has fucking potential. And then I want to keep this under an hour, so I'll just quickly speed through the games I haven't played. We got PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. This game is fucking weird. I don't think I would have liked it if I played more. Rivals 1, I think I would have kind of liked it if I played more. I also really don't like how you can't block or grab in this game, kind of like Multiversus, but ultimately a minor complaint. Smash Flash 2, I played a little bit of this back in the day. It was quite fun. It's kind of a fusion of Melee and Brawl. I'm not crazy about it, though. And I don't know if I would like any of these games except Rushdown Revolt, because this is like that crack melee shit, and it's also got like air dashing and roaming cancels, kind of like NASB 2 and Guilty Gear. Brawlhalla actually looks pretty fun. I like the item-based combat and the weapons and stuff. Like, that seems pretty fun. Icons I touched a little bit. Just felt like a very clunky, goofy, melee-esque. I know that was the predecessor for Rushdown. And then, yeah, Framemakers, Punch Time Explosion, and Brawl. I've literally never even seen gameplay, so I don't know what to say. But I know Framemakers has assists. I love Marvel, so maybe I would like that. But yeah, guys, thanks for listening to my hour-long rant about why I like or dislike all of these games. I hope you learned something or maybe got motivated to play one of them as a result. Yeah, I would have to strongly recommend Rivals 2. Please check this out. And Slap City, just got to give it the nod because it's very small by comparison to all these other games. But yeah, try all these. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing can hurt you if you give these a shot. So check them all out. You can comment on my tweet or comment on this video if you want to bring up any points. I never upload, so I'm not going to beg you to subscribe or anything, but you can go ahead and do that if you want. I'll probably give you like one upload a year, lol. Alright, anyway, I'm out. Peace.